Wow, not even in Texas. We're not live. No.
All right.
But now we are. How about that?
Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, we're live.
Yeah.
Oh,
Please
nice.
sub to my Rumble channel. There is the link. Pushing that. I have 7 subs. I'd like to get some more over there on Rumble before I
Oh, yeah,
start.
Rex. I still got to do that. Sorry, buddy.
Well, there's the link. And if you need it, I can send it over there to Instagram, anything, you know.
Yeah, shoot it over to my Instagram, or I can pop out and go with something now.
Okay.
Either way.
Chad, that almost looks like a rosary if you hadn't have covered that end piece, huh?
I know this is my team right here. The Astros.
Ah, okay.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Astros. Now we're going to be
My
talking some
daughter's,
Black Phantom today. Black Phantom.
There
There
you
we
go.
go. Yeah, he's got
Ah,
turned one way. I've got
we
turned
should
the
have
other.
coordinated. I could have held mine up at the same time.
Oh, well, we can
Appreciate it.
redo. We can redo. Yeah.
So you in Houston there, Chad?
Sure am. Been here.
Yeah, my daughter and my 2 grandbabies are down there.
Wow, you don't sound like a grandpa.
Oh, dude, my daughter just turned 41 on Groundhog's Day.
Yeah,
February
his
2nd.
daughter's older than me. He got started earlier than
Wow.
I did.
Nice. I just became a grandpa this last year.
Oh, congrats, bro.
I was a grandpa back in the 90s, guys. Of course,
Whoa.
I had a couple adopted daughters, that were a little bit older.
Right.
I was
Right,
like 14 and 16 when they were born.
Nice.
Oh,
Yeah.
How about you? Where are you guys located, or do you
Northeast Arkansas, and he's out of Chicago.
Okay.
yeah. Well, actually, Northwest Indiana. I'm just southeast of Chicago.
So you're not far from the Diaz brothers then?
Right.
Oh no, yeah, we're neighbors.
Okay.
Yeah.
You ever go
Yeah,
visit the arcade?
No, not yet, man. Dude, I don't go to Chicago. I haven't been there in like 10 years, man. I don't want to strap on the bulletproof vest and yeah.
I think they're
Not
out
to
of
the head.
town though. They're not they're more
Oh,
on
they're-
the outskirts.
Yeah, I think they're pretty close to the loop over there, which I mean that used to be safe territory no matter when it was, but nowadays
really?
nowadays even the Magnificent Mile, Michigan Avenue, people are getting mugged and beat up and shit on. It's crazy out there these days,
Oh.
dude. I won't take my girls out there.
That's it, Phil. I'm not coming to visit.
Yeah, I feel bad,
Why?
dude, but it's like, sorry, man.
Why is the link so long to this thing?
I don't know. How do I shorten it? I just copied it from the site itself.
Hey, good score on getting on with Dan Fraga a couple days ago on Couch Doodles.
Oh, cool.
I think I thank William Perdomo for that.
With Luke, and we had hey Katie, and we had
Hey, Katie.
Luke on yesterday, as you know.
Mhm.
Good night, Katie. Sleep well.
Night, Katie.
You can find Black Terror, Holy Terror, over on Kickstarter. We need to convince him, Shadowhawk, to come over to fund my comic, but I've given it a shot. Maybe you can convince him.
Maybe.
Yeah, he hasn't rolled it out.
Maybe. I know Indiegogo was really trying to get me to go on there this time, but
hey, Katie,
I look at it this way.
If you're still there, subscribe to my Rumble. There's the link.
Fund My Comic is run by Luke Stone and a couple of other guys that are in our community.
Right.
They're all creators. It's very much creator owned and operated, and it's all geared towards comic books. Indiegogo, they've got fucking electric scooters and every other gadget in the world, and you may get promoted, you may not. Also, FMC is about half the price of any of the other crowdfunding platforms, and you're never going to get canceled. They just tried to do it to JDA, and as much as I don't like that guy, I'm happy that he didn't get canceled.
Yeah, I'm glad it didn't happen either. That's good.
I did finish my latest and greatest. There you go. Very new character.
All right.
In color. Yeah. I'm not a big
Hail Tank back in the chat again. Woohoo!
He's back, yes.
Yeah, good to see you lately, Tank.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been battling COVID in the family and by himself.
Oh no.
I forgot to share this yesterday. I got another one of those dual end brush, pens that I
Right.
like to ink with. It's not it's water based. That's the only drawback, but I haven't had any smearing. Maybe on, erasure. Thank you,
Oh,
sir. Thank you. We're up like 15 or we're up like 16 subs in the last 28 days. Uh,
woohoo.
I got at the Hobby Lobby for like 449
Oh yeah.
battery operated little electrical racer. Pretty good deal.
I've got one of those too.
Do you
Oh,
really?
cool. So
Yeah.
it just vibrates itself, and you don't have to like.
It spins. Yeah. Mhm.
That's neat. I haven't seen those.
And they didn't have any singles like this. I've been using one of these brushes that has, you can tell I've already, different tips on it. But they had a 3-pack for $10 and I picked that up. And I got something very special today. I will reveal it tomorrow. I went to the store and got something very cool and I will display it back here tomorrow.
Oh, it's a big object, huh?
It is a big
Ooh.
object. It's actually a comic book display.
Oh,
Oh
nice.
my. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And
Very cool.
Yeah, a little
and
update for my channel. I've got my new tripod on the
there's a
way,
hint.
so we'll have a much steadier view for our comic book reviews. I don't know if it's going to get here before Saturday or not, but it should be here before next week. So
Nice. Yeah, I have some tripods for conventions, and I print my banners on cloth and hang it
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
that because it's
oh,
real.
cool.
It's a lot lighter and easier to fold up and get in your luggage if you have
I
to.
can get
Yeah.
one on that durable nylon, maybe
Yep.
even with grommets. I don't know, but
Mhm.
I can get something like that printed here locally in full color for like $60, and it's going to last you forever.
I get the pocket at the sewn in at the top, so you can
Oh, so
just
you can just put
slide.
like a little bar right through the. Yeah,
Yep, slide the rod through.
Yeah, there you go.
there you go.
Yep. I've
Thinking
been
ahead.
I've been doing conventions for years and years and years, and once you start getting your kit like tweaked and you play with it, you find different ways to cut out on weight and
Yeah,
excess and
how
Well,
to
what
pack
was
up
the last
the
one
van
you?
or what have
What
you.
was
You
the
know that.
last convention you did?
it was last year. It was Comic Palooza, and I tabled with Phil Diaz and our friends Nick Patera and Ghost House.
Mhm.
Oh,
And
cool.
Have you got anything scheduled for this year?
I wouldn't mind going and doing GalaxyCon in New Orleans. That looks like it would be a fun
That
one to
sounds
do.
like it'd be a fun time.
Especially
I
if you had it at Mardi Gras.
I went and just bought a ticket for GalaxyCon in Austin because they shift around city to city, so they're not there every year. Which
Oh,
I think it makes more sense that they travel rather than be in one location every year. So I went and
I
checked
thought
out.
Tank was talking about, I was wearing a collared shirt and I looked good, but I think he was talking about my artwork. He says looking good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool, man.
Homer's got me doing color pieces,
yeah.
which takes a little bit more time, but it's worth it, I guess,
Right.
to show that.
So GalaxyCon in Austin, I attended just to visit, and I was shocked at the amount of comic guests they had flown in and had booths for all these guys. It was pretty
No, no.
amazing. So I
Yeah.
thought, well, at least they put in a lot more effort for comic creators. So I think I'm gonna try doing one of their cons.
I was vacillating whether to have you on or not, Chad. I got to be honest because there's no
What?
kids. Well, there's no kid squid on this campaign. I blame you, the creator. It was a fun supplement book that you had out last time, and now you totally flushed him down the toilet along with the tentacles. What up?
No, I'm gonna do another one. I I'm writing. I've got a spin-off story I already wrote for Pandora, and I'm working on another Kid Squid. So it's just I'm not fast right now, and I'm trying to get my
Hey,
leg.
Omer.
See
Yeah.
what?
I was saying hi to Omer Glitch in the chat.
So
So the
I'm
real
trying to.
story is Kid Squid got kidnapped while Chad was in Chicago visiting the Diaz brothers, and he's
Oh
now being
man,
served up in a Greek restaurant on the south side.
take him down a peg.
Yeah.
Now you can give me a hard time. I can
He's
take it.
already short
Well,
enough, Tank. He's sitting down. What else you want?
all right, now be nice.
He could stand up and be 8 foot tall. How do I know? It's the internet, you know. But yeah, we had a fun time yesterday with Luke. You know, talking about his project a little bit, and we've been trying to get him on forever. I mean, you know, this is episode 1015 today. It's been, and that was the first time that he had been on.
It's
Now,
amazing.
you know, I did 116 of those without having guests on, the very first 116 of them. So he's opted out. He come in under 1,000. At least you've been on once, Chad. You know.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I figure why not? It's about time, right?
Yeah, yeah. Shoot, man. I mean, that was probably
It's
about
all
a year
good.
ago or
No
more.
biggie. I'm fine.
Homer says I must make some Black Phantom fan art.
You must, and then I
Yeah.
could put it in a future issue of it.
It's a great looking character. You know, it's got that Ben 10 vibe to it. You know, that younger audience
Right.
sort of stylization. Kind of what's your artistic background, Chad? That where you arrived at said style, because that is your art, right?
It is. It's really funny. People say they can look at my work and recognize it as mine, but I can't see that yet. Like somehow I don't. It just doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm still finding myself, and I'm not trying to like push a particular look or style. I'm just going with the flow. I've worked on like so many animated TV shows that I've adapted. Glad to hear you had a good Texas show. Yeah,
because he's in Texas.
nice.
I tell you though, Chad, I was immediately taken with Black Phantom when I saw the first campaign. I mean,
I
just
appreciate it.
yeah, it's a very cool style, dude. It's a little bit cartoony, but kind of gritty at the same time. And I really like it, dude. Look at that dude. He's just a badass.
Yeah, I mean, you put
Appreciate
a
that.
skull. I think I heard Shay from Red Valkyrie. Maybe when you were on her channel, right? I mean, you've been on her channel. I know
I
when
think
I've
so.
been on it, but I don't know if she's ever cosplayed one of your characters. But she was mentioning either about your character or someone else's. You put a skull on a character, and you know it's automatically interesting. And there seems to be a lot of skull-like characters within the CG type indie.
Yeah, I've tried
It's
to.
an easy go-to.
I've had this character, like I told people before. I've had it since I was a teenager, and I've got a ton of drawings from way back. And there is an evolution of the design, but I think I'm finally with the first issue of it. I finally started tapping into a look, look on his face. So it allows.
I mean, even though he's a skull character, he has a unique kind of look to him. You know, that's
right.
One of the things that
I was trying to like. I've experimented with like nose holes and all kinds of stuff, and it just not worked for me. But I think this method allows me to visually express his character so in any situation. So
well, you got the Spider-Man eyes, right? They
get
larger, smaller, squinty.
Yeah, I like that.
You know, it
gives him a nice expressiveness too. You know,
right?
So yeah.
You got that what they call an animation kind of stretch and
right.
What do they call it? Stretch and pull,
squash and stretch,
and stretch. Yeah,
kind of like McFarlane used to do with Spidey back in the day. You know.
Yeah, I never made it designed them with intention of like actually being like a movie or anything, but
Yeah.
animation he would work
Oh
really
yeah,
well.
for sure.
And I
You
mean, it's a black and white costume, stark
know.
costume, so it's going to stand out if you ever do colorized backgrounds, whatnot, on the thing. It's going to
Right.
really contrast, and that I feel like in a lot of artwork, that's what's missing. Chad, is contrast in the
Right.
artwork. It's they don't define it down to the nth degree, and I think when you do solidify it like that, it there's no gray area. It's like when it comes to illustrative sequential artwork, it needs to be
Right.
I mean, it doesn't have to be okay. It can be sketchy. You can get
Mhm.
artistic with it, of course, as far as you want. I mean, look at Bill Sienkiewicz in the '80s. He had a sort of inky, painterly style. Look at Jason Bascom. He's kind of like
Mhm.
other artists that ink slingers like Shadowhawk calls him.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. I like that. I like that
Mhm.
grittiness.
Me too. I'm envious of people that do it like that.
Well,
I've just
Hey, Mike.
you might, just a suggestion that it never occurred to me to except right now, but hey, we're brainstorming, right? That's when good things come out of that. Or you can throw it in the trash bin. It's free. It's worth what you paid for it, Chad. Anyway,
okay.
Jason Bascom did a non-dialogue comic. It
Mhm.
did have some sound effects, but I mean, it was about his ninja priest character.
Right.
Your character has swords. Why not do something like that without dialogue and just tell the stories visually?
I might do it. I mean, I think there's a lot of that actually in doing action. So if you
Mhm.
got my last book, it's almost pantomime on its own, that part of the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
Now, what
For sure.
I don't know if I asked you, but what is your artistic background?
My artistic background,
Yeah, where did you go? Any
so
college or what?
out of high
Any
school,
fancy school in there, Chad?
no. So
Yeah.
out of high school, I was looking at going. I couldn't afford to go to college, so I was looking at joining the military, like the Navy, even to get a GI Bill so I could go to college. But my dad, he toured Vietnam 3 times, and
Oh,
Wow.
which was like 9-10 months per tour,
Yeah.
and
well.
he was in a gunboat that went up and down the rivers during the war.
Wow, that was dangerous.
So the first Gulf War was about to break out, like around the early '90s.
Yeah, and your dad was like, "Nope, you're not
Yeah,
doing this."
that's exactly what happened. My mom was pushing for me to join. My dad took me aside and then gave me the whole history of his experience, and it was
Oh,
pretty tough, I have to admit. And he said, "This is why I don't want you to go. I don't want you to have to live through what I lived through,
yeah.
and so please don't make that decision. Your mom
One
doesn't know what
giant brain scar going
your
on.
mom." Yeah, he's like, your mom doesn't know what she's talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Dave,
So,
I'm a lot older than you, obviously, but my dad he was kind of old already because I'm adopted, just like Rex.
mhm,
When he adopted me and my brother, he was already in his late 40s.
mhm.
So he had served in World War II,
Wow.
and he didn't really talk about it much. But when I got closer to my teenage years, and I was like, "I want to be just like you, Dad. I'm going to join the army." He just looked at me and went, "No." He just, no,
Yep.
don't ever do that.
He stayed home and had children.
So what? So what happened after that was So I went and got it. I was starting to work in a comic shop around this time,
Nice.
and the owner, he had several locations. It was mainly used bookstores. It started out that way, and
Hmm.
then he was really into comics, so he opened up basically comic shops within these used bookstores around Austin, and he also bought and sold original comic art as part of one of his businesses.
Hmm.
So I ended up like traveling the country with him to conventions, going with him. And I was the dumb kid. I ended up being the kid that drove the van while he flew. You know what I mean? Like he'd just fly into a big con, and I would drive there with somebody else. So he started introducing me to all these comic artists, and I got to know a lot of like really well-known people way back in the early '90s.
Name drop.
Gil Kane. I knew Gil Kane as a
Oh wow,
teenager.
Oh,
that's
nice.
a big.
I mean, and
I
his
say
wife.
I say Gil Kane is the seminal cover artist. Probably did more covers. I can think of one artist that might rival him, and not really. Al Milgrom. He did a
Right.
lot more covers than what a lot of people think.
A
Yeah.
lot of kids nowadays don't really talk about him, but his run on Spider-Man and his run on Batman are really incredible books. Like they don't get talked about enough. They're some of the most dynamic layouts you'll ever find anywhere in
Oh,
comics.
Homer,
I'm a
I'm here
big
to say you're never coming on this show again.
Homer. I'm
But
gonna have to shoot you now.
but if Gil Kane was not great with names. He had a bad memory with names, but he knew faces. So
Yeah.
anytime you walked up on him, he's like, "My boy." He'd always call everybody "my boy, my boy." you know.
That's
I
cool,
do
though.
too, Homer. Any stories about Gil Kane besides that before we move on?
um, I've got a lot of stories like a
He was probably gray
so.
haired like I was, huh?
Yeah, he was at the time. He's a little
At the
darker
time,
in
yeah.
years actually. So, um, so from there, I started showing my artwork off to different comic guys in the industry and taking their advice and going back. And I just kept drawing and drawing. At some point, some of these guys were like, you're not bad, and I could teach you some things. So I ended up apprenticing or assisting a bunch of different inkers and people in comics. And like one of the guys that I assisted just passed away like a couple weeks ago. His name was Arthur Nichols. He drew the first Magnus Robot Fighter books and a bunch of stuff for Marvel and DC in the '80s. He was Neil Adams' assistant, so I'm like second generation
For
assistant
Marvel or Valiant?
for Valiant. He did the Valiant Magnus Robot Fighters. He also worked for
Okay.
Marvel and DC.
Oh, okay.
So he was art director at Valiant at the time Magnus was first coming out. He's the guy that hired and found Joe Quesada and hired him in his first job.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Even Joe was working at a hardware store in New York, and he was selling Arthur track lighting for his apartment, and that's how they met.
Wow.
So Art and him were talking, and he's like, "Yeah, I want to draw comics and this and that." And Art's like, "Well, bring your folio by the offices and let's have a look." And on the spot, they hired Joe to start coloring comics while he also sat and learned on his sample pages,
Right.
So,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
oi,
Anyway.
Care, good to see you.
So I got my start doing assistant work, but I kept trying to get my own jobs, and I got close to doing some pretty cool stuff. Jim Ballant, who was an artist on Catwoman, was wanting
Yeah,
me to ink,
Catwoman. Mm-hmm.
was wanting me to ink him over, on that book, and the editor didn't want to give me a shot because I didn't have much of a name or anything, and I was really frustrated at that time because, like I got stacks of rejection letters still from like way back, even a bunch from Extreme Studios and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, but
And
I think that's where it comes to life, Chad, is the
right.
inking. I love Joe Rubenstein, and I didn't much like Klaus Janson. I've come to appreciate him.
Right.
Tom Palmer, Terry Austin's probably my favorite. Although Steve Ditko over Kirby,
Right.
that's my jam.
One of the first people I got to know, professionals I got to know was a guy named Doug Hazelwood, and he was the inker on like Tom Grummett and a lot of those guys on the Death of Superman and the Rebirth of Superman. He won. He was one of the 2 winners of the Marvel tryout book. You remember that? The big giant book.
Uh-huh.
So
Yep.
Mark Bagley won the penciler contest in there, and Doug Hazelwood won the inker award for that and started getting work from that. I forget where I was going with this about Doug being one of the. He's a great inker though. I can't remember what it was. I was going with that. I was on to something.
Yeah. Well, and you had your friend pass away recently that you kind of.
Yep.
Yeah.
One of the other guys I assisted, his name was Keith Wilson. He shared a studio outside of Austin with Bill Willingham and Bill Williams, who writes Punchline.
Yeah.
And they
I loved his Elementals, and
oh,
he's
yeah,
on,
they had this like really awesome studio with its own bathroom. It was a big space, and it was behind a video store, like a mom and pop owned video store. So they had access to the front of the store late at night, so we could go in and grab videos and sit and watch them.
How cool is that?
Yeah, it was really awesome.
Yeah, so VHS, right?
That's where I first got to know Willingham. Hey, Billy. And from there, from my failure of that Catwoman book, my dad, he told me about this video game studio in Austin several times.
No, wait a minute. You were talking about your failure of the Catwoman.
Right.
What do you mean? I mean, they wanted you to ink. Jim wanted you to ink his stuff, right?
But the editor, my dog is crying, by the way, if you hear her in her sleep.
A little bit.
So the failure of that, my dad had said many times, like, hey, there's this video game studio in Austin. They would keep advertising in the paper. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to be Todd McFarlane, like I want to draw comic books.
Who doesn't?
Hey, okay, good to see you, brother. Zabe Comics in the chat.
So when that failure happened and I got rejected, though, that is Sadie, my new puppy. You have not. Do you remember Sadie? I don't know. Anyway, because Phil's visited here. So finally, when I got rejected this one time, and I was so just upset by it, my dad's like, here. And he clipped out this clipping from the newspaper. Artist wanted. So if you see right there in the middle, it says artist. We want to see some attitude. And this is a studio called Iguana Entertainment. They were part of Acclaim. And my dad clipped that out, and I read it. I was like, well, they did create NBA Jam, and do some other cool games. Am I cutting out?
No, you're good.
You're good.
I think I froze. So I went, all right, Dad, I'll do what you said. I'll listen to you. And I turned in a portfolio to them, and I got hired the week of my 23rd birthday, which is this week in 1996. Wow. So I've been professionally working from that point on. So there you go. That's how I kind of got started. And around 2005, I had just gotten let go from an Japanese anime studio that's out of Houston. That's how I ended up here. And my wife and her family are from here. And 2 weeks after I was let go, I thought there was no chance in the world I'm going to be working again. I don't know what's going on. I got a baby about to be due. I have no insurance. I was really panicked. And this guy calls me up out of the blue on the phone. He says, hi, my name is Frank Parr. Somebody stuck a Post-it note with your website to my monitor 3 days ago. And I've just been admiring a bunch of your work. How would you like to come, or how would you like to work on an animated Iron Man movie and design all the armor and stuff? I was like, yes. Like, are you kidding? It was like a miracle what happened, and that's what really kicked off my animation career from there. I got an agent, and I had an agent for a while, but I realized I could start getting my own jobs. I didn't really need an agent, and that's how it all kicked off. My whole career.
What's uh sort of the main thing you learned from animation?
The main thing I've learned from animation,
Yeah.
I've learned a lot being in animation. I've learned a lot about um, personal drive and how to schedule myself and networking. Networking is super important. It's not just having a good portfolio, but like meeting people and getting to know people and working hard, having a good hard working ethic. Make sure um
You got to have an animation. I know we've had Jose
yeah,
Garcia on here, and he's got a work ethic that's, worked for
right.
Disney and all kinds of people. Yeah, Hasbro, I can't even keep up with it.
My advice for anybody in any professional art career is this. It doesn't even if you think you're going to hear the worst kind of news possible from somebody that you're working for or you're behind and you're just dreading a phone call or whatever, I tell you what, picking up the phone or returning calls or emails as soon as you possibly can goes way farther to these people than you can possibly
It's
imagine.
that personal touch, isn't it?
Right.
And it's being professional.
They're willing to give you more breaks just for that alone. So
Mhm.
don't ghost these people, like, and then get your ass in gear and work hard too.
I recently binge watched all three, although they're like 22 minutes long per episode, the old HBO Spawn, and on the special disc, he said, I got so many rejection letters, and
Yep.
he talks about little how he broke in. They're like, I think eventually they just got tired and said, give this kid a job so he quit sending us stuff. I've
Right.
heard that out of a lot of creators that made it.
He's told that story a lot, and I think that was truthfully out of my whole career early on, and even after that, it's still that was still a motivational story for me. I remember he told it on the Stanley comic book greats. He told it on one of those videos. Um, yeah, like if you don't give up on if you get rejected, don't give up. That's another piece of advice. Like just keep trying. It's like a numbers game. Eventually the right person's going to come along and want to give you that job.
You
You know,
might spend $2.2 million in Vegas on the slot machine, but
right,
eventually it's going to hit. You might get $5 back, and then again, you might
right.
get 500 million.
And I've told this to a lot of kids trying to break in video games too. They're like, yeah, but they're all the requirements. I don't match those. And I went, yeah, that's there for a reason. That's their ideal candidate that an HR person puts on there. But what it really boils down to is sometimes they got to put butts in seats, and if you're,
and it also is a deterrent if
yes,
you're not going to at least
right,
challenge that, right?
right. If you don't step up,
Yeah.
it's like a test in a way. But they're more than willing to like take somebody they think has potential and then teach them how to do those things, that you're lacking, like whether it's an art skill or a software skill, they're willing to work with you. So don't ever like give up on trying, because you're going to get rejected like so many times. Had I just given up, like there have been many times where I probably wouldn't have survived in animation. But one of the things I did around around 2010, and that I started renting a car. I would go to Burbank rent a car, and I had no money for a room or anything, but the car was like $100 for a week, and I sacked out in a car while I networked, you
Mhm.
know, and I would get access into the studios, and I would show up really early before a lot of people came to work, and just kind of clean up in
I would
studio.
say most people of means probably know what rice and
Yeah,
beans
they're one
are.
of these stinky
You know,
convention goers.
Like I slept a
yeah.
lot of nights in the Bob's Big
Get a
Boy Burger.
divining rod and find Chad on the floor. There he is. Smell-o-rama.
The Bob's Big Boy Burgers.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
yeah I sacked out in that parking lot in Burbank like so many times for long periods just so I could score work and network and meet people. And I did. I
Yeah.
would go, I would get a lot of potential jobs, and I would come home and people would start calling me up after
And
my
you were
visits.
probably pretty prompt and on time and
Yep.
Yeah,
there,
that's awesome.
probably the first face they saw,
Yep.
sometime. Yeah, I mean, animation's a whole new world, isn't it?
It's
Uh,
now dead right
yeah,
now.
yeah. I hate it when Filmation went out of business. I mean, the last American-based in-house. I mean, Hanna-Barbera. Have you seen the documentary on that? I bet you have. It's on YouTube. I
Mhm.
rewatched some of that recently. I've still got to finish it.
Right.
I think it's the great Johnny Quest documentary, and it talks about how Hanna-Barbera got started. And they weren't
Right.
even looking. I mean, Hanna was an engineer, like Shadowhawk.
Right.
He wasn't even looking to go into animation. It's just things kind of worked out, during the war years and whatnot.
Yeah, sometimes the world puts things in your path,
And
Yeah.
I'm drawing a break or blank. There's a
Thank you,
guy
Jerry.
there's a guy I met at Warner Brothers who's they cool thing about Warner's is they'll keep a lot of the old timers around, and they will pay them a salary
Thank
and
you, Carrie.
keep them on staff, so they're there to teach the younger guys that are coming in, the new kids,
Mhm.
any new skills they need. So they will work one on one with new guys all the time. And I met this one guy, and I'm drawing a blank on his name at the moment, but his story was really funny. He was just a kid during the '60s, or when Hanna Barbera was getting really big.
Mhm.
He got caught dumpster diving by Hannah out back, digging out cells that they were throwing away like in the
And then he
trash.
would wipe them, right, and reuse them.
No, he was collecting them, like he was
Oh, he was
collecting, like
collecting. Okay.
they were finished cells, like they were just chucking them in the trash. And he was telling me the
Wow.
story how he got busted taking them like stacks of like Flintstones and Jetsons and
Yeah. Yeah.
different Johnny Quest kind of stuff.
You know that those Flintstones was, I think it was $65,000 per episode.
Wow. Well, it was
It was
prime
the
time.
most expensive animation at the time.
Yep. So after getting caught, because they were asking like, "What is he doing?" He's like, "Well, I'm keeping these. I'm wanting to learn how to work."
Animate.
And he was
Yeah.
like 12 years old when it happened. And they were like, "Well, why don't you come work for us and intern, and we'll teach you." And that's how he got in the animation, by dumpster diving.
Yeah.
Oh,
Isn't
we
that
got-
wild?
yeah. New logo,
Okay.
Shadowhawk.
Now, have
Yeah,
you ever
sorry about that.
used like
Carrie said I was starting to echo, so I dropped out and came back.
Well, it
have
sounded like
you
a TV was on in the
have you used
room.
like vinyl paint? What they used to call Selville paint? That may just been a
While
name,
the wife's
for
radio at
animator.
home.
Not in a long time have I used it.
Oh yeah, I used it back in the '80s. I thought it was, pretty cool,
Right.
alternative to like gouache or acrylic or oil. It's just a different. I don't even know if they make it anymore. They
Yeah,
used to have a place in California. I'd get it at. I've still got the catalog.
I need to go back and start playing with a lot of that stuff. I used to use gouache and paints and I
Mhm.
miss it, but at the same time, I like digital too.
See,
So,
your character begs to be animated because it's simple design. He could
right.
be like in a running scene, and then the backgrounds, you could go all artistic and watercolor
Yep.
or whatever with it. And I mean, that's kind of what they did on Johnny Quest to a certain extent.
Yep.
It almost and especially like the 67 Spider-Man.
Hmm.
Um, I wasn't aware uh that Alex Toth was so big into for so many decades into animation.
Yeah, he was a key player in a lot of the
And
action
Gray Morrow,
cartoons.
I didn't know he was a sort of concept artist for uh Spider-Man 67. You said you were kind of a concept artist,
Yep.
kind of like Jack Kirby was for like that Fantastic Four late 70s series and Thunder the Barbarian. Did you ever do any storyboardings or was that kind of separate?
No, I haven't done any storyboards. I did pitch story plots at one point when I was on Looney Tunes. But no, I haven't done that. There's
Mhm.
too many skills to learn, and
But
I
now,
don't
do
think
you
I.
thumbnail your own like Black Phantom out,
Yes,
that and paste it out? You do that. Okay.
yeah, I do it all on my own.
Yeah. But
So
I
that's
mean, you
why,
kind of thumbnail it out, right? Before you
right?
start to do the finished pages.
That's to me, that's kind of why I'm slow, is because that's the hardest part of the whole
Hmm.
process for me. It's not it's not sitting down and drawing it. That
Do
to
you
me,
try and tell the story in the visuals, even if it didn't have dialogue
yeah,
first? Yeah.
I kind of have some rough key dialogue that I know what I want to go
Right.
there,
Yeah.
and I try to work in space for the balloons in my thumbnails
Hmm.
based off of that.
Yeah. You kind of have to
But
allow for that space, don't you?
but I also allow for the freedom to adjust
Hmm.
when I'm doing it. So like right now, I'm starting to do that for the next issue, which I hope to start drawing right away. I want to have the next issue of Holy Terror done in by June, so I can launch the next campaign in July.
Okay.
But yeah, so yeah, I'm not sure if this mini series is going to be 3 issues or 4. I'm trying to leave breathing room so I can expand if I want to.
Hmm.
I know exactly where it's going to end and
Well,
how it's going to end.
back in the day, the miniseries kind of, like the
Right,
Punisher or the Machine Man, things like that were quite popular. And then, of course, they had maxi series and sort of
man.
a play on it. They'd have a micro series, which was really, which was Turtles, you know,
Right.
but it was one issue. It was a one shot. Instead of calling it one shot, it'd go micro series.
That's kind of where I
It
want
was
to
fun.
be. That's how I want to do my comics. I want first Black Phantom was just a one shot.
Hmm.
This next one's a mini series,
Oh,
and
okay. So
and
this is
then
the start of a 3 issue arc. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, it's just a three. It's gonna be 3 issues, maybe 4. That's why I didn't
Okay.
specifically set that
Hmm.
number, just in case I wanted to expand, and do
Hmm.
more. Because I've already
Oh,
got the second issues already plotted out, and I know exactly where I'm going with it, and I know where the whole thing ends. So
nice.
yeah, I'm actually really more excited about the second issue because I'm gonna be diving more into the personal part of Black Phantom, which I haven't done yet. So
Yeah. Well,
Right.
I mean, you got to lay a good foundation, right? And then you go you do a deeper dive as you go
right,
along, I guess, unless you just hit it hard or you do a book like Death, 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 where everything's crammed into that.
yeah,
I,
Uh,
I'm just gonna throw down 300 pages. Excuse
yeah,
me.
yeah,
yeah, I
Joe,
think that
what are
thing's
you
over
doing?
300 pages. I finally saw an update on X about that. Not that he hasn't been sending out updates, but I thought he had already, I mean, I knew he had ended it because I said, man, I wanted that book. And he's like, you can still get a copy from me. And I was like, oh, good. Uh,
Cool.
and he's still coloring. Got about 16 pages to color with that, I think, or something.
He's
So
not doing color, but he's
still working,
drawing.
or
Yeah.
he's still working on it. But I mean, that's kind of his
I think it's going to be
magnum
black and
opus.
white, isn't it, Chad? Or is he
Yes.
doing? Is he
It's
doing a
all
color version?
it's all black and white.
Okay,
Okay,
maybe it was
yeah, that's
drawing.
what I thought.
Okay.
But the way I am looking at it, though, is I could spend as fast as I am, which is not fast. I'm pretty fast in the animation industry, but now going into comics, I'm just now like learning to ride a bicycle, sort of.
Yeah, right.
The
So-
turtle and the hare, Chad.
Right.
Just
So
saying.
So the way I'm looking at the way I'm doing it right now is I'm just going to take it in increments of 24 and then sell them as individual issues like that. Because if I spent an entire year doing 64 plus pages or more and only to do one campaign a year, I feel like people are going to forget about me, at least this way I'm providing some regular content. So
yeah, and you're staying fresh in the
yes.
consciousness or whatever you want to say.
What Iron Man series did you wind up working on, Chad?
The animated Iron Man movie called The Invincible Iron Man, and it has a Joe Quesada cover on it.
Okay, I bet I have that. I
It's
bet
about,
I do.
It's about who's the dude with all the rings on his fingers?
Mandarin.
Yeah, it's about the Mandarin.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. That came out when? Like early 2000?
2005, before the live action.
Okay.
But that movie means so much for me, or to me personally, because like I said, I lost my job and I had no insurance, and that came around at like just the right time out of the blue. And it covered all the expenses of my daughter being in the NICU for 10 days. And
that's great.
And the coolest part after, not just after that, was they flew me out to California to see it in a theater. And I went in and walked in the theater, and it was John Favreau and his kids sat there and watched the movie with me. Like,
Wow.
And it was right as he was already beginning to work on the first Iron Man movie, and he was still getting story ideas when he was writing it. So it was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, what's wild about collecting all those DVDs, that the Marvel and DC has come out with over the years, especially on the Marvel ones. Stan Lee, while he was still alive, would, on the commentaries on the back end or whatever, the special features, they'd say, yeah, we've got 4,000 characters at Marvel. Yeah. And then, a couple of years later, we got 7,500. We've got 14,000 characters at Marvel.
Right.
They keep growing their staple of characters. And, every few years they would mention where they're at on those DVDs as far as how many characters they had. And it just kept exponentially growing over time. It's like, wow.
The guy that
but you got, granted, you've got 17 versions of Spider-Man, Spider-Girl, Spider fucking, whatever. Technically, I guess it's.
I bet we could sit here for the next hour, though, and list characters that we know in Marvel, even obscure characters like Paladin or the Shroud or the Human Target.
Jack of Hearts, dude. I always liked him. He never got used in that.
Stingray. He didn't get used much.
Stingray was cool.
The guy that hired me on that Iron Man movie, I had to point out, Frank Parr. He was a director and artist on Batman the Animated Series, and also worked on G.I. Joe back in the day, that cartoon.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And he did not really care for it. And he's like, I would tell him, man, I love G.I. Joe. He's like, what is it with you kids loving this G.I. Joe show? He goes, I hated working on it. And I'm like, but it's
G.I. Joe had
awesome.
kind of been in the ether for a decade almost. Because when I had the G.I. Joes that were larger size, and then, Kenner came out with the Star Wars one. So
Right.
now they're coming out with the G.I. Joe small figures. And, I had the ones with the fuzzy hair, and the pull cords
Right.
and the
Kung Fu grip.
Well,
all
to
that.
him, it was
16
working
Dollar
on
Man and all those,
to him, it was working on a low end show, in his opinion.
G.I. Joe's been out since the mid 60s in some iteration, and it really introduced it to a new generation. So, my friends' children watched it, and when they got home from school, that's what they watched, that and Thundercats and other things like that. And I wasn't, while I'm just waiting around, at his house, I'm watching it with him, I was already in college at that point, but I got exposed to some of that, I get it, I'm like, that's not as good as, Herculoids or Johnny Quest, but you go back and look at those and it was like, yeah, they're really not that great, animated things. I gotta say Johnny Quest though was cool, but that's when you could throw a punch and land a punch or shoot somebody and have them fall and show blood, and which they really didn't do. But Ted Kennedy with his legislation kind of killed that in TV and animation.
Right.
And it was only toward the early 90s when you were talking about the Batman Adventures and things like that, that things started to turn around in animation, where you could actually show some of that. Now I think we're probably could have a Texas Chainsaw Massacre cartoon if we wanted,
Probably.
I don't know. It's
to me, in my mind as a kid, because G.I. Joe came out when I was like 10 years old, that cartoon. And to me, it was like, it really wasn't, but to me, it felt like a grown-up big kid show. It was more mature. It was serious. It was about war. And it really wasn't. But in my mind, it was at the time.
Right.
Did you ever pick up like Nom?
I bought all those when they came out.
Yeah, Michael Golden kind of sold it, didn't he?
Yep.
Oh yeah, dude, I got all those Nom books.
Even at the time, that was a big book when it first came out. People were like, "Oh man, are you reading that Nom?" Just the BuzzFeed off that.
It's funny you mention that, because Holy Terror is inspired by the G.I. Joe yearbook that Michael Golden did. The one where the Russians steal the missile. Are you familiar with that one? That's probably the best Michael Golden comic ever drawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the G.I. Joe yearbook.
Well, I was going to ask you, you probably apprenticed, or, you probably know some names that I wouldn't find, or the chat wouldn't find familiar, that have been an influence on you. But what are some names of artists like Michael Golden that you can name that's been kind of, you can see has kind of influenced your
I have had too many influences from guys that I've all met personally, and it's really hard to just name one, because I would say Arthur Adams has always been my big favorite.
See, I always put him and Michael Golden together because they kind of had a similar cartoony type.
They also had Austin ink, both of them.
Terry Austin.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have
one
a lot
of in the business.
I have a lot of original Arthur Adams art here in my studio. I've got a little under 30 pieces by him.
Wow.
That I've collected. I have an entire issue of his thumbnails from a Danger Girl one shot that he drew, and they're like yay big, and they're super detailed. Imagine everything on it except the shading detail, and that's it. But everything's there. So
Yeah,
yep.
he had a great run in the 80s on Godzilla. He loves that was where I first, I mean, he really likes to draw the monsters. And of course, over the decades, he's really shown that,
I think what's appealing to me, because he and Chris Pacello are kind of guys that I really loved.
Mm-hmm.
I like that there's a realism of line and detail with the cartooniness mixed in.
Yeah.
And that's what I like. I don't
Now, I don't
I'm
know
not
the artist's name, but there's an Art Adams sort of look-alike artist that's out there that's
yeah,
getting.
Nick Bradshaw.
Yeah, do you like his stuff, or
I
do you
love
think?
Nick. I
Do
love
you?
Nick's work, and Nick used to be on a forum I was on in the '90s, posting art, and it's interesting. He ended up getting a lot of work on the what is it? What is it, the Evil Dead comics? He was
Mhm.
drawing a bunch of those, and he drew some Danger Girl, and then he disappeared, and then came back looking like Arthur Adams. But his old art style was really amazing. So I don't know why he switched. But anyway, going back to what is appealing about it, I like the cartooniness and the subtle realism of detail. I'm not crazy about art that is trying to look too real,
You
because I
like
think
J. Scott Campbell?
I
He's
like
kind of
J.
got a.
Scott Campbell. I like personality.
Mhm,
I like acting. I like characterization.
mhm.
When a comic book gets too realistic looking, then it just doesn't put
Yeah,
me in the story the
yeah, kind
same
of like
way.
Gray Morrow or Kurt
Yeah,
Swan. They were more illustrators, right?
right. I like those guys fine,
Yeah,
but you know, uh, Gil Kane wasn't super real, but he was very dynamic.
yeah,
And
yeah.
he made characters stretch and move and go crazy. I think that's why I really loved McFarlane as a kid. Mc, I mean,
You know what would make my childhood today is if they did a Stretch Armstrong
oh yeah,
comic. You know, we
yep.
we need more plastic,
I
pliable.
I think they tried to bring it back a few years ago, and
They
it didn't
did.
happen.
They had a reissue of the toy. That thing was heavy originally.
Oh
Yeah, I
really?
mean, a big. It weighed like 2 pounds
I remember it,
or
and it
more.
was really tough to stretch at
Yeah,
first.
yeah. Corn syrup.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, red corn syrup. Because mine came with a little nick in the arm, and eventually, just by using it, it eventually leaked out. One day, he
Oh
was
man.
bleeding out all over the place. Ah,
Stretch Armstrong
yeah,
bled out.
yeah.
That's funny.
They had a lizard stretching character, and I didn't think that save the head. Maybe I still got the head somewhere,
Mhm.
but they had a lizard that was, didn't sell that well, and so the head alone, I saw one of those on like Pawn Stars, $600, and that was way back, you
Whoa,
know, 10 years ago. Because it's
man.
just a rare, and all it is the head off of one of those stretchy characters.
Yeah, I
Oh,
remember.
and they remember the ads maybe in the comics. They had
Yep,
Batman and Superman that was
yep.
stretches too. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I remember a lot about the 70s growing up. So there was a lot of cool stuff. I
Shadow
actually
Hawk
had
says, "Sorry, Chad, got to bow out. My internet is
it
sucking."
was great talking with you. Um, I had the I had one of those cheap Batman utility belts. Oh, nice.
Oh, I had one of those too, and the Spider-Man one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Had
You
the
you probably
grappling.
mail ordered out of the Hero World catalogs that Joe Kubert drew.
Yeah, I bought mine at. I remember my grandmother bought it for me at the drugstore, the pharmacy,
Yeah.
when I was a kid.
I mean, that's a tragedy. I didn't realize, 40 years ago how good we had it when we went to conventions, because it was growing then beyond,
Right,
it was like celebrity type thing. It's always had that type of thing, but it was more creator centric. The
right.
creators were the celebrities, and it
Yep.
was more about comics and comic collecting and back issues, you know, and it's morphed into something way different. you
I
know.
went to my first comic convention. I guess it was like 15 or 16 in the 80s, and it was this convention called Dallas Fantasy Fair,
Mm.
and I really loved it. I mean, the first comic artists I ever met were Doug Hazelwood, and then John Byrne. I met right after that.
Is he
But
cranky?
he is so cool. I don't care what anybody says.
See, I had to ask that.
He is the nicest guy on the planet because he did this comic signing at my local comic shop, the one I ended up eventually working for later.
Mm-hmm.
And not a lot of people showed up to it. And I was on my bicycle. I brought a stack of books. And he goes, "Is this all you got of my stuff?" I went, "Well, no. I've got like a ton at the house, like over a long box or more of your books." He goes, "Go get them. I'll sign them. Just bring them back." So
Wow.
I pedaled my ass off like across town, and it was in the Texas heat. And I'm coming in the house, I'm panting, like, Ma, you got to take me back to the comic shop. John Burns there, and he's going to sign all my books. And sure enough, he sat with me and
Wow.
signed every single one of my books. And I still have them to this day. They're like signed inside and some on
Uh-huh.
the cover in the little, the little Spider-Man box
Yeah. Yeah.
that
The little.
he would sign his autograph in there
I
or
own one original by him, and it was a key piece, and sadly it burned up with in my fire. It was arson
oh man.
back in '97, but it was the Avenger heads that go up in the Ditko box,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I remember
and
that.
they still use it today. That artwork today. The only one that was unfinished, that was just kind of penciled in by him but not inked, was
Mhm.
Mockingbird. That's why we never got a John Byrne Mockingbird. He didn't
Oh,
finish
I
it
see.
for some reason. I bought that back in 1985 for $60.
Well, but that was a lot of money though
That was a
in
lot of
85.
money, right? Yeah, I had to go to Chicago to get it too, you know. So
I mean, the first Arthur Adams page I bought was probably 92, 93, and I paid $100 for it, I remember.
wow.
And
Yeah.
then I bought a Monkey Man and O'Brien page after that for
I love
250.
Monkey Man and O'Brien. Yeah.
$250 for that. But the first page I bought was a Gumby page out of
Yeah.
it
I
was the
grew
same.
up on Gummy and Pokey, you know,
Mhm.
and then Saturday Night Live,
Well,
Eddie
yeah.
Murphy's, you know,
I'm
Gumby,
Gumby,
damn
damn
it.
it.
They
I'm
should have
Gumby, damn
brought
it.
Pokey, you know, like maybe Dan Aykroyd or something in a Pokey outfit, you know,
But
as
he
the horse.
sounded, but Eddie Murphy was doing it in the voice of like an old Jewish guy,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah. Yeah. I always liked SCTV with Eugene Levy. You know, he
I
would
loved it.
play Sid Dithers and he'd go, she's hooking and I don't mean a rug. And Fridays, do you remember Fridays? That's where Michael Richards kind of got his start before he
Oh,
did
yeah.
Kramer. Yeah.
Yep.
He played that Dick character. He's like, yeah, whoa.
I only
showing the hair.
remember the episode of Fridays that Kiss was on.
Yeah. Yeah.
That just stands out to me.
Yeah, I would watch Fridays on Friday night, and
Mhm.
then I'd watch Saturday Night Live, and then late you would get, you know, Guy Caballero and
Right.
you know, John Candy, and I knew all those SCTV people before they did Uncle Buck or any of that stuff, you know, and
Right.
got big. Bob and Doug McKenzie, you know.
Oh, I loved Bob and Doug.
Okay, like we're gonna have a Kriller
Right,
and you know, 6-pack of cup.
Hey, a hoser, eh?
Hey, take off, eh?
Yeah.
We're
I
having
like
on
that.
like this Chad guy over here today, eh?
I like that movie as a kid. The Bob and
Strange
Doug.
Brew.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had Ming the Merciless in it.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm back, rewind the show. Tank Ferret says, hell no. Did you get your punching bag up though? Be backing the new one Friday if it's still live. Tell me it's still live. Shadowhawk says. It'll be up Friday, won't it, Chad?
I'm sorry, what did I miss? I got distracted.
He must be talking about somebody else because you're on Fun My Comic, and
Phil
I know he's not
Diaz.
going to do
I
that.
think he might be talking about Diaz, maybe having
Okay,
his show
all
Friday
right.
night. He does Hardline.
Now here's an animator without a trailer. I got to point that out and poke at you, Chad.
I had a trailer last campaign. Do you think it makes a difference?
You know, all right. I'll show you a campaign where I think a trailer makes a huge difference. And it may be on choppy ass theater, you know, but you know, at least you'll get the gist of it. Sorry about that. But I think trailers can make. I think it depends on the project. You know, I'll be honest about that. But I think in the for Apex Comics Fembat, I think you get to know the character in his groovy trailer made by the Good Stuffs, Mr. Good Stuff. I think it really informs you about what the project's about. Let's take a look. And you can be the judge. No words, Chad, but you get to see a lot of the artwork, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And that's like 56 pages, so it's a biggie.
It's a honker.
Yeah. It's a biggie. What you got in the background there? Is that a painting?
That
I see a Hulk Buster back there.
That's an Incredible Hulk poster by Todd McFarlane from the 80s.
Oh, yeah. I always like to get the latest posters. So, yeah, see that now. Gray Hulk.
Yeah, it's framed. So I've had it since I was a kid.
Yeah, C-3PO there, but isn't that a Hulk Buster there in front?
Yes.
And it looks like you got a gorilla back there too, maybe.
Yep, I got King Kong right there. I got a McFarlane style Venom that came out in the 80s. I got an Iron Giant back there, a bunch of Hot Wheels. I collect little Batmobile Hot Wheels and some of the cars. I like those. I got all kinds of junk. And I got a ton. I'm not showing it. My office is still a mess. But I got a ton of Lego over that side of the room.
I never, you know, I'm a little bit old for Lego, but you're in that sweet spot for that, you know.
I like it. I like it because it's a way of being creative and as a side hobby. So
yeah,
I can get in a zone and just not think about anything but how am I going to connect all of this together? I like making original stuff.
Off topic, but did you ever collect Pez?
My wife did.
Really?
Yes.
There's some big Pez collectors out there.
Have you ever been to the Pez store in LA?
The museum?
No,
I haven't.
It's at Universal Studios. They have a giant Pez store. It's really neat.
Okay.
So,
If I ever make it out there way again, to visit Hex Allen or Dillard or
right?
somebody that's out there, maybe. I hadn't been out. This will blow your mind. I haven't been out to California since 1969.
Oh wow. You know what? I recommend not going.
Yeah, I do
Yeah.
too. It's going to slip off into the ocean one of these days, and then we'll have Hawaii 2.0.
Well, last time I was there, the homelessness was
Yeah.
so out of hand.
Oh, Hex Allen's done, Rex Hex and Apex show with us, and he's driving and got the camera on, and you go under the bridges, and
Yep.
yeah. Do you think it's going to thin out now that we've had a regime change?
I don't know. I mean, they could just dig their heels in,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
nothing
I
changes.
think they're going to kind of scatter and go underground in some cases. Of course, it'll take years to clean up the mess that was, because you had millions of people pouring in, you know. And what's mind blowing is over 300,000 children they couldn't find.
Right.
They couldn't
I
account
got,
for. I mean,
I got,
and you can't even impeach the guy. That's crazy. I hope they go after his ass.
I've got friends in California whose homes burned down.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's poor management. They won't even let you. The environmentalist. That's part of it.
right.
How deep on a conspiracy do you go with that? Was it a laser beam, or did it just
I don't
who knows?
know, but
Yeah.
people should start painting their houses blue.
Yeah, I think next time I paint mine, and mine's about due, I'm gonna, notice somewhere in blue now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a blue roof
Yeah,
here before long.
my face may get burned off, but this shirt is gonna survive, folks.
Yep, that's it. Unless you got a blue mask and hat on,
Yeah.
you gotta wear
So,
Dodgers colors.
are you well traveled, Chad? You been all over the place with your career, or you
Um,
been pretty much in Texas?
I've been to Korea, Japan, and
Wow.
a good part of Europe.
Okay.
Last place I was in Europe was Budapest, and I really think that's a cool city.
Yeah.
One of the most beautiful cities I think I've ever seen.
You kind of like the cuisine, the different places?
That's one thing I'm disappointed about going to Europe is um, you think you're gonna go find local cuisine, and it's just not as easy to find as you think.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
you've got. I mean, it was really disappointing to be in Paris a couple years ago, and everywhere I look, there's a Five Guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's not. It's so Americanized now. There, like even
How did they treat you in Paris?
Oh, fine. I didn't
Okay.
have any issues.
Okay.
Paris
Yeah.
is not as grand as I had hoped it would be. I've not seen so much graffiti anywhere in the entire world than I did
Wow.
in
Yeah.
than in France. But I like
I think countries like that in the UK are kind of in trouble because of the immigration. If they
yeah.
don't cut off the Muslim flow, they're going to get voted out of office, and they're going to start tearing the Eiffel Tower down. That's my take on it.
Well, Budapest is none of that. Like the city is like so gorgeous, and you
Mhm.
don't see any graffiti or anything anywhere. It was just real pristine. They take real good care of it. I
Yeah, they
like,
probably got a strong cultural identity, don't they?
yeah, I
Yeah.
like, I like Vienna. I think my favorite city after Budapest is Lucerne, Switzerland. It's built in the mountains on the edge of a lake that's in the mountains, and it looks like something out of a fairy tale. I mean, all the streets are cobblestone, and
Oh, yeah, that's,
yeah,
I mean, is tourism a big part of that? I mean, I guess that's probably their main thing
probably,
of their economy, right? Is tourism because of the
probably.
very scenic scenes and everything. Yeah.
So yeah, I've traveled. I've never been to Canada. I've never been to Mexico. I mean, right now I'd be terrified to go to Mexico, even though
Yeah, and some places in Canada. I mean, when I thought of Canada, I thought like pristine lakes and the frozen tundra, and wooded areas and
Right.
Dudley Do Right and all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Korea was fun. Japan, I would love to go back to Japan. I'm really fascinated by Japanese manga artists.
Yeah.
Like even though I'm like 52, I wouldn't mind like just going and being an assistant to like some mangaka artists for a year, just like to experience it.
It probably would help you with your speed, huh?
Yeah, it would. I think. I
Mhm.
think it'd be just like going and getting some training.
What are you reading now, Chad? That's so interesting. Is it crowdfunding stuff? Is it you still reading some Marvel DC stuff? I picked these up at the Dollar Tree.
Oh
The first
yeah,
comics I found out in the wild, and
that's
I
neat.
scored the stand today. I said, if I buy the rest of those off of there, will you give me the stand? He's like, sure, take it. And I'm like,
Oh,
yes.
I see. You gave away your big reveal
I
tomorrow.
did, but nobody's listening. Nobody cares, you know. They even had an Ethan Van Sciver Green Lantern cover on one of those.
Nice.
You know.
I actually started a manga series.
Hey,
I don't
Dale.
have it. I don't have it right here.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Spy Family. I didn't think I was gonna like it because of the art.
You just triggered something. Secret Six. Well, not was it Secret Six? The little animated thing that's kind of like Ben 10, but it had the cryptids. Secret Saturdays.
Secret
That's what it was called.
Saturdays. I don't know that one.
Did you ever watch that? Oh, you ought to look that up, man. Oh, wait a minute. You know what? I bet we could play a trailer. I bet we on YouTube we could at least find a trailer for that. That's actually a pretty good animated cartoon. I can't believe you haven't. Do you watch a lot of animated stuff yourself?
Yes, I do. I like cartoons. I've actually I've been watching My Hero Academia, even though I don't think it's the greatest. Visually I love it. I think it's a great manga, artistic wise. Story wise, it's kind of but man, that artist is so good. But Spy Family is pretty good.
It's got that family dynamic to it, like Johnny Quest did. Here's the theme song to it. Is that not cool?
It is cool.
You got to check that out, man. Yeah.
I will check it out.
I've got some of those on disc. I need to check and see what they've got on YouTube with that, because
was that out around the Dexter's Lab era or a little after?
Around, and Ben 10 and all like that. Yeah, I mean in the past 2000s,
Yeah, Omer Glitch. I was surprised too. I would like it. Looking at the artwork of Spy Family off at first glance, I didn't think I would. And then I read the first volume and I was like, wow, this is really, really fun. Anyway. So yeah, that's Secret Saturdays. I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, I think you won't be disappointed. Maybe you can find it streaming on something, I don't know.
Like my favorite Batman cartoon is actually, besides the animated series, is Brave and the Bold. If nobody's ever seen it.
Oh, the animated one? Yeah. I love that. It only had 3 seasons though.
Yeah, I was never a fan of Dick Sprang, the Batman artist. But that is a really good series though.
It is. I like Batman Beyond too. A little futuristic twist.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Did you like Justice League Unlimited?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I worked on Justice League Action that came out about 10, 15 years ago. And I also worked on the Legion of Superheroes TV series.
Black Phantom, Holy Terror #1. What's up with the name Holy Terror #1?
Well, it's because the story is based around the Spear of Destiny.
Oh, the now let's clarify that. The Spear of Destiny is the spear that supposedly killed Christ, right? Stuck
Right.
in his side. Yeah.
And so throughout history, it's gone from person to person, like leaders of the world, and they've kind of gone on to conquer nations in other countries when they were,
Mhm.
or armies when they were in possession of it. And this is basically a story like that, where this general gets a hold of the spear and he goes to take it back.
Mhm.
So next issue, Longinus, the Roman that pierced Christ, is going to appear in the second issue, along with his sidekick, which is a lion that um, travels
And you're
with it.
doing blank cover. Did you do a blank cover to draw on your first one? I can't remember.
Yeah, I did, and
Okay.
it was really great because it was half my earnings on the first campaign. A lot of
Yeah.
people bought sketch cards and sketch covers.
And on this one, you're introducing a new character called Gremlin, correct?
Yeah, that's his sidekick. He's basically like half dog, half dragon, kind
Mhm.
of, and he's like a little kid. He's got the mentality of a kid. He likes
I
to
always
tear.
liked Kitty Pryde's little dragon.
He's like you know how I don't know if you have any dogs or pets, but he's
I
like a
do
puppy.
right there.
He's like a puppy, and he likes to tear stuff up. And he has a very limited vocabulary too, so he can talk a little bit. But
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, is he an alien dragon, puppy,
no,
whatever?
I,
No,
I,
he's got multiple eyes.
yeah, he's got four eyes.
Yeah, that's not normal.
No,
I mean, for you, it might be normal to have four eyes. Have you ever been called that, Chad?
no,
Okay, well, I'm here to not call you that. Okay.
four eyes. Anyway, that character, yeah, I've had the idea for Gremlin since
Hmm.
about 2005, and I pitched Black Phantom as a TV series and got close to
Yeah,
selling it twice.
that's wild. Yeah.
Yep.
The
But
fate of the world hangs by a thread. Black Phantom and his fearless sidekick Gremlin, who's introduced in this issue, are in a race against time to secure the legendary Spear of Destiny. But a power hungry general with world
domination.
domination in its, I'll get it, shut up. and in his sight stands in their way. Brace yourself for thrills, action, and danger in this action packed adventure.
Yep. And the
Who's your
book is
colorist, Chad?
myself.
Man, you're killer on the colors. I love it.
Thanks. I'm
Yeah.
colorblind too.
Are you really?
Yeah, I'm
Wow.
one third colorblind. But
Wow.
I've gotten good at picking out colors.
How did you decide on your, and you had a glow in the dark cover here too,
Yes.
which is pretty rad. Um,
Yeah.
and you're doing custom sketch cards. That's always cool.
Right. I'm trying not to like have too much on the menu. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I feel like it's bad enough that I can't, with my wife and kids, decide what we're having for supper. I imagine the same thing as for people when they look at these campaigns. Like they see
Right.
20 variant covers.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I would get frustrated and give up. You know what I mean?
So at $10,000, you get glow in the dark die cut stickers of Black Phantom, and every backer will get one for
Right.
free.
Right. I gave them away free and standees free my last campaign. The real reason though that stretch goal for the standees is a little high is because I want to do a horn toad
Right.
figure that's about an inch taller. He was the villain from the last book.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be about that big and about that wide. So
Yeah.
they're not going to be
Big
cheap.
one.
I want to
Yeah.
be able to give them away to people, but I need to reach that goal in order to do it.
Well, now what's that go? Was that 50,000 for that?
No, that's for 24,000 to that I'll give
Okay,
those
so
away.
if we hit 24,000, they'll get basically a free standee.
Yeah, 40,000. I'm gonna add another story to the Black
8
Phantom.
pages, 8 page
Yeah, like
story.
8 pages. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, you believe in the stretch goals, man. I mean, it's like 10,000, 20,000,
Well,
40.
I know I might as well aim high. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's not easy to give away the free stuff, Like I have to budget it in. A lot of people, like last time I did it
Hey, pal.
and I managed to do it and my campaign made 16,000 and
Wow.
I was able to afford that stuff. But
Yeah,
this time
yeah.
I'm just gonna try to work it in as a stretch goal.
Well, Chad,
That
you're
way.
the reason I put a Devil Flyer standee up on my campaign because I thought, Chad can do it. And he said, hit me up, when you get ready to do your
Yeah.
standee. So in a few months, I'll hit you up and go, hey, where can I get those standees made affordable?
Yeah,
Um,
I will help you with that. Oh yeah,
okay,
you got my glow in the dark sticker last time too.
I did. Uh-huh.
Let me show you. They're like this big. Hold on.
Yeah, I like
So,
that character. I do. I like that. What is that? Horn Toad? What's his name?
yes, horn toad.
Mm-hmm. And you got horn toads there in Texas, I know, because when I was
Right.
visited in 1969 to Plano, Texas, when it was
Right.
nothing but farmland, that's the first time I'd seen a horn toad was in Texas.
Yep, they kind of went extinct for a while, and now they're kind of starting to come back because uh, the schools in Texas have been
Mm.
working at breeding them again and then
Wow.
releasing them
Yeah.
out into the wild. So that's
You would
kind of
see them
where.
out like the soybean fields and things like that.
Mhm.
One of my relatives caught one and showed it to me. I was just a little tyke of about 3, 4 years old, and they're kind of weird. They bleed at their eyes.
Yeah,
When you catch them, to kind of an escape
yeah,
thing.
they can shoot it out of their eyes, which
Yeah.
is one thing I want to explore when I do the 8 page or the horn toad story. I want
Mhm.
to explore that blood shooting out of his eyes thing. Like,
Wow. Yeah. Now, have you got a good rogues gallery you said, I mean, how old were you when you first created the first iteration of this character?
I think I was like 15, 16 when I first came up with it, and
Yeah.
I made 2 or 3 attempts to draw it as a comic, and I just did not have the drive to finish
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing, and it wasn't until recently, because in 2020 I almost kicked the bucket. I went in the hospital for COVID related pneumonia, and I
Hmm.
was in for exactly 28 days in the hospital,
Wow.
and
It got
it's
in your lungs, I guess.
yeah, really bad, and
Hmm.
I still have shortness of breath because of it.
Hmm.
But sorry, I got distracted for a second. But so anyway, it was like during that and my recovery that I just went, I don't know when my ride's gonna end. So, and I've always said I wanted to do my comics with my characters.
Hmm.
So what am I waiting for? I mean, too many times I thought it's got to be perfect, and I would get too caught up in the perfection of it and then not
Hmm.
finish it. And that
Yeah.
now I'm of the mind of just finish it and do it as best as I can and then move on so I can get out all the ideas and all the villains and all the
Horny
stuff that
toad. Yeah.
yeah, horny toad.
So you got a villains roster, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I've got a villain. I don't know if I'm going to introduce him anytime soon that travels through electricity and the internet. He's an assassin.
Mm.
That's a guy I want to introduce. I've got Pandora, who I want to really do a story with.
Oh, that's a great name, Pandora.
Yeah, she's the little
Yeah.
girl from Kid Squid.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So
want to
what's
do.
going on with Kid Squid? He's you know, I
I
know
have
you
a.
haven't abandoned him, but
I haven't abandoned him. I'm gonna do something again soon.
you
And
think it was well received on your first campaign?
it's interesting because I, if I'd done it just by itself, I don't think people would have gotten it.
Right.
And that was my way of like getting it in front of people to read.
Mm-hmm.
So I included it with the first Black Phantom, and a lot of people came back and said, Black Phantom was cool, but Kid Squid was really good. I like the story behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I definitely will do that. I just want to get this next Black Phantom out of my
Do,
system, and
do
then
you? Well, I mean, there is something. We were talking about this. I was talking earlier today with David Brink. I said that's one thing you've done successful. You found, he was doing other things, and then he hit upon Perfect 10, and
right,
that did a little bit better. And that's because of the other, I think, earlier campaigns as well, and getting well known and delivering and everything. But he's stuck with that IP ever since, and I think
right,
that's good. That while the iron's hot, you continue with that same IP. If you
right.
don't, you're kind of foolish, aren't you?
Yeah, I want to incorporate them to where they're kind of interacting. I hate saying it's like my own universe, but
Yeah.
they're in the same world. I'm not thinking I'm creating some genius universe
Yeah.
in my head. I just want to get my ideas out, and I'm fine with my characters eventually interacting somehow. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I love the character. I'm really excited about it. It's like I said, I had it since I was a kid, and now I'm
So,
getting
yeah, I mean, once you get everything kind of established, then you can start having fun moving the pieces around on the chessboard, like having crossovers and things like,
right. I think that
excuse me,
first
things like
issue,
that.
of Black Phantom, the Rocket's Red Glare, was the first story I wrote, and like I said, I tried drawing it several times and then gave up, and I decided, I'm not going to leave that one story unfinished. I'm going to do that first,
Mm-hmm.
just so I can completely wipe the slate clean and get it out of my system.
I can see your animation influence on just
Right,
simple designs. That's just intuitively, it's like make the original design fairly simple, and then you can elaborate on it. Like the
right,
original Daredevil, well, in the 90s, Daredevil's body armor got a little bit more complex, but so did a lot of things in the
yep,
90s. You can always build off that very simple design, can't you, into
yep.
something more complex.
I mean,
And
I'm even gonna change the costume up every
are
new
you?
series. Yeah, at some point.
Bastard, man.
Why?
Well, I mean, are you going to do it on this issue, or is it going
No,
to?
but
No,
so
not so
I
quickly. Okay.
I have an origin story that's
Why?
I have an origin story that's written and planned out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty happy with it, so I want to do it as one book at some point. But
Yeah.
their earlier version of him, he's wearing a doughboy helmet. You know what a doughboy helmet is during World
Yes.
War
From
One.
World War One. Yeah,
So he's
I was gonna say that if you've got early iterations and
right.
they're fairly solid with a little tweaking, yeah, definitely work that into your stories. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, so he's got like a normal World War II costume and his mask. He also has a gas mask that's kind of skull like too, that fits
Yeah.
with the era.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he, instead of the crossbones like being here like on his chest,
Yeah.
like which those two straps represent a cross,
Uh-huh.
um, he's just gonna have a pair of white bones on his hat
That's cool.
or his
And
helmet.
I mean, I'm fascinated by World War One probably more than any other war. That's one war that I've always said I would not have liked to have been in, with trench warfare, and then all the biological warfare, gassing and
Right.
mustard gas, and I mean, sometimes they gas their own troops, in those early tanks, and it was just brutal. I wouldn't have wanted to be a part of World War One at all, but it's
No
very
way.
interesting. It's a very interesting war.
It's a
Actually,
brutal war.
more people died from disease after the war from the returning soldiers than were killed in the war.
Yep. Yeah, and plus they didn't have a means to understand or deal with the trauma that these guys faced when
Yeah.
they came home.
It was probably the first great war where it was on a wide scale. Now I know there was
Right.
some of that in the Civil War and other wars, but
They called it
you know,
shell shock back
Mhm.
then, but it's
Yeah.
PTSD now.
yeah,
But
yeah. And I mean, just no man's land and barbed wire and machine guns
yeah,
and oh my
cold,
God.
mud,
Yeah.
rain, wet.
Yeah. I mean, people get trench foot and I mean, God, it's just rats
Miserable.
everywhere. It's, and they didn't go anywhere. They didn't go anywhere. They just dug in and didn't go
Yep.
anywhere.
So yeah, his origin takes place on the battlefield.
Yeah, that's cool. So sort of born out of war, huh?
Yep.
Yeah. That's kind of what I did with Devil Flyer. It's like, okay, when thinking about this character and where do I want to put him? So I said, okay, I want him born in the 18th century. So 1899, right at the end of it.
Right.
That makes him just old enough to fight in World War One toward the end of the war, and just and not too old to fight in World War Two because I wanted him to fight in both wars, kind of like Wolverine.
So you've gotten it plotted out already?
It's kind of like I'm falling and I'm figuring out things on the way down.
Right.
I've got some of it figured out.
I'm just not gonna tell you, just start doing it.
Right, exactly. J. Michael Straczynski, he kind of worked like on Babylon 5. He wrote 1,000,000 years in the past and 1,000,000 years in the future and kind of met in the middle. See, he said, I wanted to know where I've been with the characters and where I was going. And that kind of made sense to me. But, I agree with you, Chad. You can't plot it all out in a day.
Yeah.
You do your best work over time of just really rethinking and then just things popping in your head and saying, oh, I could do this with that.
But I think also part of it too is you could spend more time planning than you are actually doing
the work. Yeah.
And so I think the goal, like for me, like in the next week, because I'm just finishing up doing some of the lettering on a Holy Terror and getting the files ready for print. But I'm going to try to like focus on getting all the thumbnails and layouts done as soon as I can, like in the next week or two for the next issue.
And so you're probably, like you said, you want to have this for field in June, hopefully, and then start
in July. July, I want a campaign, and then have it ready before Christmas in people's hands. So
probably not going to do something over on Fund My Comic, and you don't want to do Indiegogo. I know.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm just my reasoning is a couple of things. I started on Indiegogo and I liked it, but I realized that Kickstarter. Everybody knows Kickstarter. It's like Coke. Everybody knows Coca-Cola, but nobody knows about Pepsi so much because Indiegogo is like Pepsi. So when I would tell people all the time about the campaign. They're like, well, what's Indiegogo? I said, well, it's like Kickstarter. It's just a different brand. And they were like, oh, I see what you mean. They understood me. But I just figured it's a bigger market. I might as well take the hit and not
kind of like eBay has been around. It's the market, but you can find other smaller places. But the biggest is going to be in eBay.
I probably would be doing better if I were on Indiegogo right now because of all the people that followed me before. There's a lot of people that are telling me they're upset that I didn't go with didn't go with Indiegogo. But I'm like, I could take the hit now and not do so great this campaign and build an audience that gets used to going to Kickstarter. Eventually, I'm just going to do it on my website because, WooCommerce has an app add-on for WordPress that does exactly like Indiegogo and Kickstarter and that on your own web page,
Mhm.
and I'm probably gonna jump over that. It's like $75 a year to do that.
Chad, I think you've got another show you're going to be on tonight, aren't you?
Yeah, J-Bot. Are you familiar with J-Bot?
I'm familiar with J-Bot. Doesn't he do Bear Zerker?
Yeah, he does that Berserker
Yeah.
comic.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna be on there at 10 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. So it's like 9:30, I think.
Okay.
10:30.
Yeah. I wanted to make mention of that before I forgot it. Yeah, we've had Jay on here a couple times.
That's good. Jay's the first guy to have me on one of his streams when I was first launching my campaign. So
Mhm.
what a great
You
time.
know, the great thing about crowdfunding is you can produce stickers and magnets and bookmarks and other stuff to go with it. That's pretty neat.
I can do that. I'm just this time I'm choosing to
Yeah.
do it a little different.
Yeah.
I'm wanting to see where I'm going wrong. Try out a new idea and see where I'm going wrong.
Well,
So
I got to be honest with you. For $25, it was an awesome deal. I
right.
almost backed it 2 or 3 times. I restrained myself because I don't have a big budget, but
That's probably
I
where I'm
really
going.
did think about just backing it again. You know,
That's,
just because it was such a great deal. You
that's
know,
probably
you
where
got a
I'm
book.
going wrong this time
Yeah,
because I
I
don't
mean,
have.
were you making money? Did you go in the
Yeah,
hole? Did you break
no,
even? What?
I didn't go in the hole and I made
Yeah,
money
yeah.
on the first
And,
campaign.
and that's counting your beans ahead of time, right? Being a good business guy about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I made sure I had a printer lined up that I could
Hmm.
afford, and I had all my numbers. So I have my numbers set even for this campaign. So I'm
Hmm.
probably right now it looks like I'm gonna break even. But if I figure if I keep at it for the next 60 days, I might be able to push it up just a little at a time. But
Yeah. Well, you know, you're invited to before the campaign ends. If you want to give it, try and give it a last boost before you close out, you're out absolutely invited back. You know.
my goal for this campaign was just to make a book that people could easily afford, and it's $10 plus the
Yeah.
shipping and handling.
I
I know
think
that.
that's you know, I mean, what is it? Blood and Sword over on Fun My Comic. He offered
Mhm,
the first one for $5. I
right,
don't know how he does it. I mean, a lot of he's kind of like Bancroft does all the work himself. You know, the
right.
coloring, art, and everything saves that way. I mean, print on demand, you can do that too. What do you think about print on demand?
I think I like it, and I don't. I think
Hmm.
the I think when you do print on demand, you're not always guaranteed like good quality,
Hmm. Hey, Edwin.
but that's with anything else, I guess.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think printers take you a little more seriously when you have a finite amount of books you're going to order or whatever.
Hmm.
But like Mixum, you don't know what printer it's coming from.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't have any issues with it. I don't know. I just found a really good printer I can afford that's willing to do cool stuff like a glow in the dark cover, even though
Yeah.
it's going to cost me a little bit more to do it.
Hmm. Yeah. Those are not the cheapest to do, but you know, it's one of my favorite. Do you have another favorite? I like the Aztec covers. I like the Holo Full. That's kind of the rainbow sheen
Yeah.
to it. You know, the metallic sheen. I like
Well,
that.
Black Phantom, the next one's going to be a holochrome too, like the first one.
Hmm.
So,
Okay. Yeah.
so everybody's getting holochromes on it for $10. So,
Yeah. I mean, that's great value. You know.
yeah, like this one. Here, I'll show you. Yeah, it looks just like this.
Yeah. I forgot how dope that looked. That's one. I love that. You did a
Yeah.
knockout job on that. PBR says, have either of you guys read the Eternaut by Hector German?
Mm-mm. I have
Austin has.
not. Eternaut.
I have
I have
not,
not.
but I like the name, you know.
Sounds cool.
It does sound kill.
Kind of has it's a like an astronaut that's an Eternal,
Yeah.
maybe a big
I've
robot.
not even watched that Eternal movie yet.
Oh, the Eternals.
Yeah, I mean, I've opted out of watching a lot of the recent Marvel movies.
Yeah,
I never thought CG would go backwards, like with Wonder Woman 84.
Yes. Yeah, 3D.
Why? Why are we
know.
going backwards after Industrial Light and Magic got us to this point, and now, is it just the budget is not there? What
Yeah,
the
it's
hell's
like
going on?
MODOK didn't look that great either in that.
Oh no, he looked pitiful. And this new Fantastic Four, what do you think about that? Have you seen the trailer for that?
Well, I think Ben Grimm looks more like Ben Grimm. The Thing looks more like the Thing than previous iterations.
Yeah,
Yeah. I still think it could be pushed to look like John Byrne's Thing a bit more.
Yeah. Oh, I loved it when he went back for a short period of time, reverted back to his more primordial,
right.
Lumpy orange thing that Kirby first started out with.
Yeah.
He's kind of unique because he morphed over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
As the series went along, he got more defined and rocky.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm curious how they're gonna tie it in to the Marvel universe. I did go and watch Eternals this past year. I was just like, all right, let's see. But I didn't watch it all in one sitting, and it was horrible. It was so boring. It's like, why did they even bother making that movie? But even that last Doctor Strange movie was terrible.
Yeah. It's sad because I believe he's a good actor.
Yeah.
I
don't think they wrote a good enough story for him.
I did like the movie that he crossed over with Spider-Man, although I don't think his bit in that was the greatest part, at all. But it's kind of a waste, really, to put Doctor Strange into that. But I guess that was kind of the whole story where everything kind of fractured. And I mean, it was good seeing the three Spider-Men come together. Did you like that one?
Yeah, I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was
pretty solid.
I like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies like a bit more, but like the first one to me was like the best of all the Spider-Man movies.
I just hated that they rushed the Tobey Maguire series, and I mean, they still had the they still had so many great early characters in his history, and they just jumped to Venom.
Yeah. Well, that's because he's got.
I know there's a whole story. Yeah. I mean, then do a separate Venom movie, which they eventually did. Did you? I mean, the first one was okay, and the second one went off the rails, though.
Yeah, those were not. I didn't like those, and I didn't like Morbius. I mean, yeah, and I did not go see Craven.
I didn't either. No, I mean, I'm hoping prices for things will start coming down. I don't think movie tickets will ever come down.
I think Omer Glitch is asking about when did Thing become the modern look that it is now. I think it was from Lumpy
30s to 40s, probably issues in probably.
Well, his current look, I think, came about in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s.
Mm-hmm. Well, somebody that divined that character probably as much as Kirby was Joe Sennett, the inking.
Right.
He just, I mean, you can tell his inks over George Perez or, depending on who he's inking, you can kind of, right. and what's wild, Chad, is that he inked the first appearance of Dr. Doom in issue 5, but then didn't ink till like issue 42 or 3, something like that. I mean, and he didn't meet Kirby for 11. He had been inking Kirby for 11 years before they even met, I believe. That's wild, isn't it? Of course, they used to mail in the work.
Have you seen the series that Wally Wood inked over Kirby, the Sky Masters?
Oh yeah, early 60s, yeah, late
Man,
50s, yeah.
that is like top tier, like
Yeah.
Kirby, like
Yeah.
those two together.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna have to call it for the rest of the evening.
Calling the game. All
Call
right.
it.
Well, you got another show, like I said, to do.
Yep.
And, you know, to get you some rest, get you some chow. That's what I'm going to do.
Yep.
Thanks, Chad, for coming on.
No, thank
Any
you for
final
having
words about the campaign? It's
No.
looking great, by the way.
me. Please don't. Please back it. You're not gonna break the bank doing it. So, if you like the first one, you can pick up the first one as an add-on. And yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Chad. Appreciate you coming on. It's been a great time. I've learned a lot about you and your career.
Thanks.
Hopefully we can do it again, before the campaign ends.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it again.
All right. Let's make it a date then.
All right.
Take care. Bow for now.
Adios.
Keep collecting and reading, and start with Chad's book, Black Phantom, Holy Terror. First one was a banger. This one's going to be awesome. The start of a brand new 3-story arc. You won't regret it. It's a great value for the price. Bow for now.
Thank you.
All I got to do is hit the button, Chad. It's
done.
not rocket science. What the hell?
Bye.
Yeah.